I was 18 when I finally asked my parents for help with my college tuition. It wasn't a big amount, just enough to keep me enrolled for one more semester while I continued working my part-time job. I remember standing in the kitchen that evening, holding the tuition notice in my hands, my voice shaking as I explained that I couldn't cover the full payment alone. My father barely looked up before saying, "You're an adult now. Be independent." My mom nodded like the conversation was already over. In that moment, something inside me quietly broke because while my younger brother's education had always been fully paid for, I was being told to figure life out on my own, and they had no idea that decision would change everything about my future. 9 years later, my phone rang, and I saw my mother's name on the screen. I hesitated before answering, unsure why she would be calling after all this time. When I picked up, her voice was softer than I remembered, careful, almost nervous. "Hi, it's been a while," she said. "Yeah," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. There was a long pause, the kind that feels heavy with unspoken words, and then she finally spoke. "It's about your brother." My heart tightened, but I stayed silent. She explained that he had started a business a couple of years ago, but it had failed, leaving him in massive debt. They were hoping I could help him somehow. I listened quietly, calm on the outside, even as memories of the nights I had worked 3 jobs just to survive came rushing back. Then, with deliberate calm, I opened my briefcase and laid out a set of legal documents on the table. Their faces went pale as they realized the company my brother had borrowed from was now legally mine. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every penny I had saved, all of it had led to this moment. They had expected to ask for help and assume I would comply, but they had no idea I held the power now. I simply looked at them and said nothing, letting the weight of their mistakes settle in the room, because finally the tables had turned and I was in control. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't demand apologies or lash out, because that kind of reaction would have been satisfying only for a moment, not for the lifetime of lessons this moment carried. Instead, I watched my parents with a calm I had cultivated over 9 long years of struggle, of sacrifice, of learning how to stand on my own when no one else was willing to support me. My mother's eyes glistened as if she might cry, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, the same counter where she had once dismissed my request for help with tuition, telling me to be independent, as though independence was a punishment rather than a challenge. My father avoided my gaze, shuffling papers nervously on the table, trying to occupy his hands to hide the panic growing in his eyes. "Please," my mother whispered, her voice breaking, "he's your brother. Can't you help him?" I remained perfectly still, perfectly calm, letting the weight of her words and the years of neglect that had led me here settle in the room like a dense fog. "I won't destroy him," I said finally in a measured tone, letting each word land carefully like a stone dropped into a still pond. Relief flickered in their eyes, but it was only momentary because I continued, my voice unwavering, "But the debt remains. He must face the consequences of his choices. Every mistake he made, every risk he took, every poor decision. He will live with it. I will not rescue him from it. That is not my responsibility." They stared at me in disbelief. My mother's lips quivered as if to protest, but she couldn't find the words. My father's hands shook slightly, and I could see the calculation running across his face. How could the child they had dismissed, the one they had forced into independence with no support, now possess the power to decide their son's fate? I could feel the tension in the room, the kind of tension that comes when the scales of power have shifted completely and irrevocably from the hands of those who once ruled to the hands of someone they underestimated, someone they ignored, someone they thought would always be beneath them. I stood slowly, deliberately gathering my coat and bag, each movement calm but authoritative. I could feel the eyes on me, heavy with regret, panic, and disbelief, as if they were suddenly seeing the person I had become, the person they had molded without realizing it. Every sleepless night, every low-wage job, every moment I had endured quietly without complaining had led to this, the full realization that their words, their neglect, their indifference had not broken me, but had strengthened me, forged me into someone capable of exacting calm, controlled justice without hatred, without revenge, without emotion clouding judgment. I paused at the doorway, hand on the handle, and for the briefest moment, I allowed myself to look back, taking in their expressions fully. My mother's hands were clasped in front of her chest, trembling slightly, and my father's mouth was slightly open, as if he had lost the ability to speak entirely. I let the silence stretch long enough for them to feel the weight of what I was about to leave behind. Then, slowly, clearly, I said the words that had simmered in my mind for nearly a decade, the words that finally closed the chapter on their control over me. You told me to be independent. So I learned how, and with that, I walked out of the house, the sound of the door clicking behind me echoing like a final punctuation mark on a story they had underestimated for too long. Outside, I felt the cool evening air brush against my face, and for the first time in years, I breathed freely, not with relief, not with vengeance, but with the quiet power of someone who had survived, grown, and reclaimed control over the life they were always meant to live. Behind me, they were left grappling with the reality that the child they had once dismissed, the one they had told to manage alone, had not only survived but thrived, and now held in their hands the truth they could never undo. They had lost not a son, not a brother, not access to someone dependent, but the illusion of control over a life they had assumed they could dictate. I didn't look back again, because I didn't need to. I had learned everything I needed to learn from them long ago. And the lesson they would carry forever was clear. Power, independence, and respect are never given. They are earned one choice at a time, one sacrifice at a time, and sometimes over the course of an entire lifetime. That night, walking into the darkened street, I felt a strange calm settle over me, a calm born not of relief, not of triumph, but of quiet certainty. The past had shaped me, the pain had forged me, and no one, not even my parents, could ever take back the independence I had claimed as my own. They had taught me the lesson without intending to, and in the end, it was theirs to learn. Control is never permanent, and the person you underestimate the most may one day hold the power you never imagined they could wield.